Tony Hunter, food futurist, up for us next. So from looking to the past for solutions, we're now going to take a step into the future and prepare for the next wave of customers and employees for our business. Dubbed mini millennials, Generation Alpha are set to be the largest generation ever seen, set to reach 2 billion people by 2025. This will be the first generation born completely within the 21st century. More likely to have more allergies than any other generation, and with millennials as their parents, they're also more likely to request plant-based alternatives. In a recent survey of American school lunches, 70% of Generation Alpha students complained that their school did not offer enough vegan or vegetarian options. A generation that grew up with social distancing as the norm will challenge our industry as both consumer and employee, and hopefully future hospitality owners like never before. So to help us unpack this further, please welcome food futurist and author Tony Hunter to discuss.
Well, as Kelly said, I'm a food futurist. And the first question I usually get is, what is a food futurist? Well, I'm not a fortune teller. Anyone who thought they were coming here today to find out the scores between the All Blacks and Australia in the Bledisloe Cup so you can make your fortune are going to be very disappointed, I hate to tell you. Because if I could predict the future like that, I would be on my mega yacht on the French Riviera. But of course I'm not, and I'd much rather be in Auckland at Hospo Hui than Saint-Tropez, I'm sure. But what I am going to do, while I can't predict the future, I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you something of what I think will be the impact of Gen Alpha on food generally and the restaurant industry in particular. So, who are our future consumers? We always hear about Gen Z or Gen Z as your American friends. But the generation we really need to be looking at, if we're looking at the future of food, if we're looking out towards 2030, 2040, is Gen Alpha. Those born from 2010 to 2024. And as Kelly said, by 2024, there will be over 2 billion Gen Alphas on the planet. Now, just to put that in perspective, at the end of the boomers in 1964, the total population of the planet was just over 3 billion people. So this is the largest generation the planet has ever seen. And they're growing at round about 2.8 million people a week. And the thing we need to realise about Gen Alpha is that they're not just digital natives, they are technology natives. They've grown up with Spot, the Boston Dynamics dancing robot, mRNA vaccines, drones, streaming video, smartphones, and probably in their lifetime, a colony on Mars. Now, there's not a lot of information surveys on Gen Alpha because, of course, they're children, and rightly some of that sort of consumer information is frowned upon on children. But if we have a look at some of the other generations and try and look at how, therefore, that predicts some of what Gen Alpha will do, is some of the recent research has shown that if we ask consumers how they feel about technology being used to make their food and in their food, 78% of Gen Z said that they are comfortable with technologies being used to make their food. That drops down to 68% with Gen Y, and Boomers and Gen X tied at 58%. So if we extrapolate that on, we're likely to see that Gen Alphas will be even more likely to accept technology being used to make their food, and indeed technology in their lives. As I said, they have known no other reality than technology. Even under COVID, that reinforced that technology. Zoom calls, Teams calls, all the things that went on to educating this generation over those years has severely impacted them, and particularly accustomed them again to technology being everywhere in what they do. So if we have a look at that, how are Gen Alpha actually affecting things now? Because if you think, oh yeah, that's okay, they're only kids, I'll wait till they grow up. I'll wait till 2028 to worry about Gen Alpha because first one will be 18. That's when they'll start having some consumer purchasing power. I'll wait till then. Well, if you do that, you're way too late. A recent study in the US showed that millennial parents, 81% of them, their last purchase was influenced by their Gen Alpha children. I was talking to Kelly, I hope she doesn't mind me telling this one. Her daughter helped her choose her skirt for today. Her daughter's, I think, 10 years old. Though the influence on purchasing power is in the billions of dollars now. And 70% of parents in the US have said that they've bought an item related to a character or some sort of movie that their child has been interested in. So I say, if you think that, hey, I'll wait, it'll be too late. You will miss out on an entire generation. And what's the signals that we're seeing this acceptance of technology by Gen Alpha? Well, the metaverse. Of course, it's very early in the piece and there's lots of hype and lots of what is the metaverse, what will it be, this and that, with Facebook now being Meta. But this is an indicator of what's going on. If we look at Roblox, for instance, 45 million daily users, and Fortnite, 25 million daily users. And if you have a look at what's going on in there, particularly say look at Fortnite, is there money to be made? Well, a DJ called Marshmello in 2019 held a concert on Fortnite. Anyone like to guess how many visitors turned up to watch his concert? 10.7 million viewers live for that concert. And is there money to be made? He made 20 million US from that one appearance. So these things are not just some airy-fairy thing. There's real money to be made. And Fortnite turns over more than $6 billion a year. And of course, if we look though at, specifically at restaurants, nearly every major restaurant chain in the world has a presence or has bought the rights to their name in the metaverse, whether they're restaurants or other major companies. And of course, the biggest of them, the most prominent one at the moment, is Wendy's out of the US. They have their Wendy's metaverse. And here's a brief video of what it looks like in the metaverse with Wendy's. You might look at that and say, a little bit entertaining and the graphics are a little bit, leave a lot to be desired. But just think how the internet has changed in the last 20 years, where we've gone to 100 megabit per second downloads, high quality streaming on our TVs, 4K streaming. Imagine that experience in 10 or 20 years' time. So again, if you're not looking to where the consumers are now and interacting with them now, then you're missing out, because those Gen Alphas are making the decisions today on whether they will shop with you in 2028 and beyond, or whether they think their parents should go to your restaurants or spend their money with you. So what will Gen Alpha consumers want? Well, I believe that what they'll want is personalisation. Now, how many people here have a streaming audio or a streaming video service? Are you surprised if anyone doesn't have at least one of those? And if you have, then like me, you get all those emails, right? You like this movie, you probably like that movie. You like this artist, therefore here's a playlist of other artists that you will like. So personalisation is everywhere. It's on our playlists, it's our Google searches, it's our loyalty services with supermarkets, Netflix, everything is being personalised. So why would food be immune to the personalisation trend? Oh yes, I want everything else in my life personalised, but food can just give me whatever they want. I find that a very unlikely future. So what will consumers want? I believe they will want more than simply tasty fuel. They'll want products that are good for their health and their lifestyle, for their individual needs. And I think the days of solely breaking out foods into day parts of breakfast, lunch, dinner and snacks are gone. What consumers want to overlay that with now is event-based products. In other words, if I have a meeting tomorrow with a new client and I want to be on point, on my game, get that contract, get that gig, then I want something completely different than when I'm relaxing on my mega yacht in Saint-Tropez next week. They might both be breakfast. I want them to perform completely different functions. Consumers want more from their food and will continue to want that in the future. So what we need, I believe, is a roadmap for us to understand our Gen Alpha consumers, particularly in the longer term future if we're looking towards when they become consumer purchasers themselves in their own right in 2030, 2040 and beyond. And I believe the best roadmap to the future of understanding what Gen Alpha will want is based upon technologies. So you might say, well, why technologies? Well, you can't talk about food from farm to fork without talking about technology. Food used to be a sleepy technological backwater compared to industries like the electronics industry, but no more. Technology is now everywhere in food. And I first noticed this about 6 years ago in 2017. Like you all here, I'm sure you get your newsletters, podcasts, webinars, and I started seeing things really changing then. I saw technologies I'd never seen before. I saw other technologies and trends advancing far faster than I thought they would. So I dug deeper. And the deeper I dug, the more fascinated I became. And after 6 years of research, I believe we're approaching the intersection of 5 exponential technologies driven by 3 accelerated technologies that are going to determine the future of food and their impact on restaurants for the decades to come. So what are those technologies? Alternative proteins, as Kelly mentioned, plant-based products, other sources of protein, cellular agriculture, which as many of you would have come across is where you take cells from an animal and you grow meat in fermenters. Then we've got genomics, which is all about genetic sequencing, and we'll come to that in a minute. The microbiome, which are all those viruses, bacteria, yeast, etc., fungi that grow on and in our body. And synthetic biology, which often involves genetic modification, genetic editing of organisms and things to make food. And then we have our 3 accelerated technologies, AI, sensors, and quantum computing, all leading to what I call our texponential food future. Now, of course, you're wondering what on earth is a texponential food future? Well, it's built upon 2 key concepts. The first is, as I've said, food now is technology. There's so much technology in food from farm to fork that you can't escape it. And one of the things we know about technology is that technologies advance exponentially. I mean, we humans are linear creatures, right? A day is a day, a week is a week, a year is a year, everything is the same. But technologies advance exponentially. And it's very dangerous to think linearly in an exponential world. And this is what's happened to our friend here. They projected along the dotted line, they think they know everything's going to go, and it doesn't. And it leads to an exponential shock factor. And as an example of how things can change, here is portable computing 1975 style. My friend Robert L. Gordon here has his hand on the first portable computer, the IBM 5100. Anyone like to have a guess how much that computer, just the bit he has his hands on, how much that weighed? Guess, anyone? 23 kilograms. Don't put it on your airline tray table. It is not going to end well. Now, fully spec'd up, top-of-the-line machine, computer, printer, offline storage, costs a princely sum of $19,750 US dollars, $110,970 in today's terms. And that fully spec'd up machine came with 64K of storage. Not megabytes, not gigabytes, K of storage. Now, my Galaxy Z Fold here, with the same size screen as that, comes with 4 million times the storage at 1/1000th of the cost, at 1/100th of the weight in less than 50 years. And where do these concepts lead us? Food is now technologies advancing exponentially. The future of food is now tech-exponential. And what I want to do is just briefly talk about a couple of these technologies and how they're specifically going to influence the restaurant industry. And the first one I want to talk about is genomics. Here we have the cost of genetic sequencing, of sequencing the entire human genome. And it used to cost 100 million US dollars. It's now down to 100 US dollars. So it's, will I give up a coffee every day this month and have my genome sequenced or not? That is how common genetic sequencing is going to become in the future. Out of interest, anyone here had their DNA analysed by Ancestry.com or knows someone who has? Yep, a few people. Yep, same here. My relatives have had that done. So it's not something that people think is absolutely weird. And this is now leading to the science of nutrigenomics. Eat for your genes, as the genopalin people say. So people are analysing their genetics and saying, I want to eat what's good for me. And they understand that from the technology from genetics. A company called DNA Nudge in the UK, and they take your DNA, analyse it, and then they nudge you with an app that you scan the food in the supermarket and it tells you whether that particular brand is good for you or not. Chicken soup is good, cheddar, try something else. And you might think, that's okay. I'm in the restaurant industry, I'm safe. Sorry, it's a company called Vitamojo in London prior to the pandemic. You upload your DNA profile from DNA Fit, and then you choose your food based upon your genetics. This person has a genetic deficiency in an enzyme that means they need to actually eat more vitamin B containing foods. So restaurants are not going to be immune to personalisation either. And at the bleeding edge, we have soccer genomics. Get your Gen Alpha child's DNA done and they'll tell you whether they should play soccer or not. Well, yes, it's rather amusing. But again, go back. In 10 years' time, 20 years' time, that could actually be far more accurate than it is now. And the next technology I want to talk about is the microbiome, which is, say, all those bacteria and so on that exist in our gut this time. Anyone here had their microbiome analysed? No, not many people have at the moment, but again, becoming far more readily available, about $350 to have your microbiome done and get some recommendations. And what it's shown us is how individual we are. You look at the person on the bottom, they were fed the same foods, these two people, by the Weizmann Institute in Israel. Now, you feed them a cookie, a biscuit, and a banana, and look at the person at the bottom. They found that their cookie, as we expected, actually spiked their blood glucose, which is a precursor to diabetes. And the banana didn't. The person up the top, exactly the opposite. The banana spiked their blood glucose and the cookie didn't. So much for common sense. And now they've spun this research off into a company called Day 2, and Day 2 will analyse your microbiome and tell you how good certain foods are for you. This person's very lucky. They get an A for a cheese sandwich and a piece of cake. I want their microbiome. And just in case you're worried about your restaurant patrons or yourself, I would never, ever condemn anyone drinking too much. If you get Z-biotics and take that before you go out drinking, it prevents the hangover in the morning. Put it slightly in the category maybe of our soccer genomics, but again, a sign of what's coming. And now if we look at our three accelerated technologies, these will tell us what it is that consumers want. They're telling them what they want. And the first one of these is biowearables, which are blood glucose monitors. Probably many people in this room may have a Fitbit or a smartwatch of some sort that measures your blood glucose. Well, in the future, you'll be able to actually analyse far more products than that, get feedback on how you react to food. And in the future, it'll also be tattoos. So you'll be able to actually have a permanent, semi-permanent tattoo that will measure various metabolites in your bloodstream from what you ate. And this is where artificial intelligence comes in, because the amount of data we're going to have is going to be enormous, and we're going to need AI to actually analyse all the data. And that's shown by this virtual physiological twins, Harvey and Harvetta. Now, they model 80,000 biochemical reactions, 26 organs, 6 blood groups, and your microbiome to predict and feedback how you will react to food. And that's where you need quantum computing, because the amount of data we're going to have won't even be handled by our smartphones. It's going to need enormous computing power. And in the end, what we'll find is that we're going to have, in the long-term future, an AI shell around us that interacts with our body and interacts with the outside world to tell us, in food terms, what's good for us and how we should react to that food. Now, it's not going to be the food police. They're not going to decline our credit card because then it tells we shouldn't have dessert at the restaurant because it's no good for us. There's going to be room for indulgence, but it's going to be about balance. And how will all this play out for our Gen Alpha consumers of the future? Well, it might play out a bit like this story from the future of food, which is based on a concept video for a restaurant called Sushi Singularity in Tokyo. And in just 77 seconds, we'll see how this future of food, this AI-powered future of food, could play out for our Gen Alpha consumers. Walter Davis goes to Sushi Singularity for a meal. As he enters the restaurant, facial recognition software identifies him, and the AI from the restaurant communicates with Walter's quantum-powered personal AI, Harvey. He sits down, is greeted personally, and he chooses his food. His nutritional profile is sent to the 3D printer, which selects the ingredients for him. It then 3D prints a product that's exactly for his nutritional needs at the moment. It's then served with a flourish. Now, this simple scenario brings together genomics, microbiome, AI, and everything we've talked about. And Walter tries his food, and from the look on his face, it's delicious. Now, so significantly, this scenario is just built on extensions of technologies that are available today. So by 2050 or sooner, this could easily play out seamlessly in real life. And let's remember, all of these technologies are science fact, not science fiction. So they already exist today. And in case you're thinking, yeah, Tony, that's all a bit far-fetched, remember our friend here? One with the hair that I used to have in the dim, dark past. But, it's another story. I'll go into that later. 4 million times the storage, 1/1000th of the cost, 1/100th of the weight. And also remember that today's reality was yesterday's science fiction. So imagine describing today's reality to someone from the year 2000. They'd have called it science fiction. Go back to 1973, 50 years ago, not only wouldn't have they believed you, but they would probably have had you locked up for being insane. And technology is not going away. Whether we like it or not, exponential change is coming to food and to the restaurant industry. But if we adopt a texponential mindset, then we don't need to fear change or the future. It provides us with that roadmap and a way of understanding what Gen Alpha and the consumers of the future will want. Yes, technologies are changing, consumers are changing, particularly Gen Alpha, but it offers an enormous opportunity for the restaurant industry to capitalise on these changes and reap the full benefits of these exponentially changing trends. Welcome to our Gen Alpha future. Would anybody have any questions?
I think they're all in shock.
Excuse me.
Kia ora koutou. My name's Greta Carney. I'm from Happy Order in Napier, which is a health food producer. Thank you for your talk. I feel like you've painted a very fundamentalist science future, potentially very one-sided. And at the beginning of your presentation, you talked about health being a really important consideration for this generation. And I'd like to understand how health and natural food, which is not in this future, where that sits in your future.
Yeah, look, sorry, just to be, obviously I didn't communicate properly. I didn't in any way say that any part of the current industry is not going to be there again. That health side of things is absolutely important. It's going to be how you communicate your message. Someone says, I need more of X, Y, or Z in my diet. Health providers, food providers are ideally positioned in this future. When someone says, I want something that suits my metabolism, that suits me because I'm deficient in an enzyme or some other thing, so I can see that as long as you're able to talk to that generation, whether it's through their AI or whether it's through any other means, through the metaverse, whatever, the benefits of what you're going, I'm certainly not saying that there's no place for that segment of the industry. Does that answer your question? Oh, sorry, sorry if you got it that way.
It's me again. It's a lot to take in, of course. And just getting from her question, my point of view is, today do you go to a supplement shop and you buy your pills? And inside of the pill, you've got your vitamins. And if you have to even talk more about neurotrophics and things that you can get for, the food that you're going to eat before a meeting, I quite get that. It would be something like, instead of going to a supplement store and get your vitamins, are you going to go to the restaurant and they're going to get those vitamins into your fine food? Is that what you're saying?
I think there's space for both, depending on what people want to do. But I'm saying that in the end, our people want to make two trips. One to a supplement store for their nootropic, and then go to a restaurant and have their food, or are they going to want a combination of the two in one? So I think that for me, if you look at consumers, as consumers, we're all pretty lazy, right? We're going to take the easiest path. If the easiest path is I can go to a restaurant and get my nootropic, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, kia ora, David Walker. I'm actually working in sustainability space, and I'll be talking on the jellyfish panel. So it's really good you passed, I think, before us, because it really dovetails into what we're going to talk about. I was interested in your point of view. I mean, I hope that future generations will have sustainability, I guess, as a value. I hope, and that's obviously, I think, is almost essential for our survival, really, from a climate change perspective. So you talk about Alpha, Gen Alpha considering what they want and what's good for their body. Do you feel values are going to play in that space as well? So do you feel their personal values are going to dictate or inform their eating choices? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Look, I didn't get an opportunity to go into that with the length of the presentation, but the Gen Alphas use their views and their opinions on sustainability and other things to drive who they think their parents should shop with, which is why I'm saying if you don't get to them now, you've lost a full generation. So I agree, and I think sustainability, as well as health, as well as just that personalised choice is what it's going to be all about. And I think you're right, their values are also going to drive their purchases.
Kia ora, I'm Heidi from Go With Tourism. I know obviously you're talking about food futures. Do you have any thoughts on how this will affect workforce as well, like with the changes in the generation that's coming through?
Oh, I think we've got a few things there. Is how much is technology going to remove the need for workforce entry jobs, and how are the Gen Alphas, or probably the Gen Betas as well? Let's not forget they're coming up soon. By the end of next year, we're into Gen Beta. So how's that going to affect them? If they don't get entry-level jobs, how's that going to work? And I think they're going to expect, when they go into a job, the expectation from many of them, if not all of them, is going to be, where's the technology? Oh, there's no technology involved anywhere? Okay, maybe there's enough of the workforce that won't care about that, but I would suggest that technology is a given for Gen Alpha. If you don't have technology, will that affect your ability to attract the workforce you want? Maybe.
Hi there, I'm Stu Robertson. I'm a restaurant consultant. I'm not going to take you too far off piece, but I was really interested in this, but I'm also really interested in what perspective you might have or any predictions you might have in terms of how this generation will socially connect with food, and this is all about the technology and the nutrition and everything. Hospitality is also about social connectivity. How do you think that will play out?
Well, I think that goes back to my example of the metaverse. Why do Gen Alphas play Fortnite? To interact with their friends. 10.7 million people went to the Marshmallow concert to be with other people. That even looking at that and the technology. And the other thing I didn't go into is, the consumers of the future are going to be concentrated from India down through Thailand, Cambodia, down through Indonesia. And they are going to influence the Gen Alphas in New Zealand and Australia. And if you think, no, that's not going to happen, think of K-pop, Korean pop, K-beauty, all around the world influencing every single culture and society. And so what those Gen Alphas up in Asia and across Indian subcontinent decide is the latest thing, that's most likely going to feed down into our Gen Alphas in New Zealand and Australia. And these generations have friends all around the world. I mean, probably no one here is old enough. I mean, even I don't remember, believe it or not, pen pals. You used to write letters to someone in another part of the world with this thing called a pen and paper. Now, they can jump on Fortnite and be speaking to their friend in India, someone in the US, and someone elsewhere in the country, just like that. No problems at all. So I think that social interaction is going to take have another layer, which is in terms of their ability to interact globally and react to global issues and global trends. And given that the majority of these consumers are going to be, say, from India down through Southeast Asia and Indonesia, is going to have a great effect on the trends and the things that they're looking for.
Hi. In that reality, where do you see the place of small business in the hospitality industry then?
I think small businesses, one of the key things, the big advantages of small businesses is their agility, their ability to react to trends, to react to what's going on. And if you look at things like, I say, people eating for their health, you're a baker. Now, Woolworths can't make 52 different loaves, but if you want to, you can have an app that says someone wants a certain type of loaf or whatever and react to a far greater subdivision of consumers than any big company can, and you can make decisions far faster. And I think that the small businesses are ideally positioned for the future in catering for the individuality of consumers that the large people can't even hope to do anything about.
Right. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Tony.
Kelly.
That was amazing. Lots. Gosh, that's such a lot to take in. And as someone who's parenting a Generation Alpha, it resonates a lot for me, their ferociousness.